Hawkeye is coming to Disney Plus, starring Jeremy Renner, and introducing a new character into the MCU, Kate Bishop.
She's a new young mentee that he can train to eventually take over the mantle as Hawkeye one day.
And we'll explore more of his time as Ronin in this series. Ladies and gentlemen, Hawkeye himself, Jeremy Renner!
This is so amazing. What I get to do in the show ultimately is shepherd an amazing character to be ultimately probably a better version of me. And the sentiment of what that is what I think the fiber of what Hawkeye is. This is a superhero without superpowers. That means everyone's a superhero.
This is what Disney Plus is doing for the MCU. It is growing it, it is expanding it. Thank you so much.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. This is going to be my new Avengers Hawkeye teaser trailer video and breakdown of that first look of Hailee Steinfeld as Kate Bishop. So we got so much information. We also found out what's happening with Black Widow during the Hawkeye series as well. So I'll explain that during the videos I'm talking about Easter eggs. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the videos. We'll do a new giveaway for Disney Plus memberships. All you have to do to enter is be a subscriber and post all your theories about the Avengers Hawkeye series on the video. So if you didn't see it yesterday, it was all over social media. We just got our first official look at the new Avengers Endgame Hawkeye spin-off series that's coming to Disney Plus by the end of next year. They just started filming episodes. They're supposed to start releasing them around this time next year at the end of 2021. During that, we got our first look at Jeremy Renner and Hailee Steinfeld, officially confirming that she would be Kate Bishop in the MCU. Pretty much everybody was reporting last year that she was going to be Kate Bishop, but this is the first actual confirmation that we've seen of her on set. She'd been teasing it on social media for the past couple of days, making all kinds of posts that made us think that she was Kate Bishop, and Jeremy Renner had been posting some Kate Bishop stuff. But here she comes running down the subway staircase with Hawkeye and Pizza Dog in tow. If you have not read the Matt Fraction Hawkeye run from the comics, I would recommend checking it out because it's badass, but it's the story that they're doing for the series, mostly. They have to update it so that it fits with the pre-existing MCU Hawkeye Avengers Endgame storyline so far, but mostly it's going to be Fraction's run. Most of the villains that I'll talk about in a second are from Fraction's run. If you don't know who Pizza Dog is either, he's actually going to be really cool during the series. During the Fraction run, some of the villains are called the Tracksuit Mafia. They have a dog called Arrow, this dog here. During a mission, Hawkeye goes after the Tracksuit Mafia. Arrow the dog turns on his mafioso masters, winds up saving Hawkeye's life, and then the Mafia throws the dog into traffic in retaliation. Hawkeye rushes to save him, rescues him, and takes him in, and renames him Lucky. So even though we call him Pizza Dog, his actual full name technically is Lucky the Pizza Dog, because Hawkeye feeds him pizza all the time, and Kate Bishop too when she comes along. Kate Bishop is more of a Young Avengers character, so I will address the Young Avengers stuff that they're setting up with the Disney Plus series during the video as well. But the villains for the series that they've announced so far are the Tracksuit Mafia, Madame Mask, I believe, and a villain called Clown. He's also part of this Hulk Gamma storyline, so that might be an indication of how they're planning on weaving in the Thunderbolt Ross, Thunderbolts Weapon Plus storyline for Marvel Phase 4 that's supposed to start during the Black Widow movie and Falcon and Winter Soldier. I know we're all wondering if they're going to work up to Red Hulk at some point. They're just starting with Weapons Plus right now and the Super Soldier program coming back. Eventually that'll lead to a lot more Easter eggs like Weapon X, the new version of Wolverine, once they do the new versions of the X-Men characters in the MCU way down the road. Number 4, so during the Hailee Steinfeld Hawkeye scene, they're running down the steps with Lucky the Pizza Dog. She has her giant bow in the other hand, and she's wearing her trademark purple. Although the way she's dressed, this seems maybe like an early version of her costume before she gets her actual comic book costume. There will be some time jumps during the series and flashbacks to the 5 years between Avengers Infinity War, the snap, when Hawkeye lost his family, and then the beginning of Avengers Endgame to cover Hawkeye's untold story as Ronin. They said that they would cover a lot of that during the Hawkeye series. They didn't say whether or not he'd be meeting Kate Bishop for the first time during that 5-year period when he was Ronin, or if he meets her for the first time after Avengers Endgame, but I'll explain in a second. There's some Easter eggs that kind of give us an idea for that. And a lot of it has to do with Kate Bishop's backstory. It's very possible that she meets him as Ronin for the first time before she meets him as Hawkeye later on. So number 3, Kate Bishop actually grew up a rich girl, the daughter of this wealthy businessman who who's kind of this dirtbag who gets involved with the mafia, a bunch of organized crime. She gets really suspicious of him, tails him one day to find out what he's into, and gets caught up with one of the villains he's meeting with. But she winds up being rescued by Hawkeye and the Avengers when they show up to trash the villains. But she's so inspired when she sees Hawkeye save her and be such a badass that she decides to get her act together and stop being this spoiled rich girl, trains herself to fight, becomes a vigilante, eventually becoming pretty decent with a bow, enough to join the Young Avengers. So mostly when she debuted in the comics for the first time, she was a Young Avengers character they just referred to as the female Archer. But then a long time after that, after a couple more big Avengers events, Hawkeye decides to train her as his successor, and that's when the Matt Fraction Hawkeye run picks up. So number 2, early theory, what's probably going to be different about MCU Hawkeye and Kate Bishop is that she's still this spoiled rich girl who Hawkeye just winds up saving inadvertently, but because his whole thing during that 5-year time jump when he was Ronin was going around killing the mafia, dismantling cartels and gangs who didn't get snapped by Thanos, odds are pretty good that during one of those summary executions, I think is what War Machine was calling them, Hawkeye going around executing people, Kate Bishop just happens to be at one of those hits being held as a victim that he winds up saving inadvertently, and she just sees him tear everyone to shreds as Ronin, getting inspired to become a vigilante herself. Like, oh, look at this badass, I should do this too. Then Avengers Endgame happens, don't give me hope, Black Widow dies, Natasha Black Widow, but he gets his family back, and because originally he had actually chosen retirement in his deal with Thunderbolt Ross after Captain America Civil War, that's the whole reason why he wasn't around for that first fight with Thanos in Avengers Infinity War. Now that he got his family back with the Hulk's Infinity Gauntlet snap in Avengers Endgame, he probably wants to get back to living out his retirement with them. But because the Hulk's snap also brought back a ton of bad people with the good people, there's still a need for Hawkeye, Ronin, to go around taking care of all these mafia, the cartels, these Avengers villains all over the world. So early prediction, after Avengers Endgame, he finds out that the random rich girl from before is a vigilante now and decides to take her under his wing and train her to become the next Hawkeye so that he can fully retire finally. But getting into the Black Widow crossover stuff, so there's supposed to be a Black Widow cameo, and it's supposed to be Yelena Belova Black Widow. They're supposed to reference Budapest again to connect with the events of the Black Widow movie and address Natasha Black Widow's death in a bigger way, because remember, they didn't even have a funeral for her during Avengers Endgame. The Yelena Belova Black Widow is also supposed to show up during the Falcon and Winter Soldier series as well, so I think that's more confirmation that she's going to get tied up in a Thunderbolts crossover. But when she shows up on the Hawkeye series, they'll just tease what her relationship with Hawkeye is going to be, how that's going to be different from Natasha's relationship with him, because they were basically like brother and sister, they were family, and also because the Avengers became like a family. So they'll probably just have some fun with that, like how come you let her die? He'll have to answer for letting her die during Avengers Endgame. They haven't said much more about what's going on with their Young Avengers crossover because Kate Bishop is a founding member of the Young Avengers, and we've already found out about several of the other Young Avengers characters showing up on Disney Plus series. Like they're literally filming the Miss Marvel series right now. She's another Young Avengers character. We have the Cassie Lang Stature, who's coming back as a big character during Ant-Man 3. So because all the Disney Plus series are crossing over with the movies, obviously Hailee Steinfeld is going to show up in the Marvel movies. It's possible that the first Marvel movie that she appears in winds up being Ant-Man 3 for more continuation on the Young Avengers setup storyline. I'm totally happy with the Hailee Steinfeld casting. I feel like she'll knock it out of the park. I loved her during Bumblebee. Jeremy Renner hasn't said a whole lot about how many other Marvel movies he wants to appear in, but don't be surprised if he comes back and cameos in some future Marvel movies as well, because Chris Hemsworth's Thor is going to be in Avengers 5. He's going to keep doing more movies after Thor 4. He's not going away. But I know you're all wondering about the bombshell that Warner Brothers dropped this morning. As of me making this video, all of their movies they announced in 2021, every single one of them will be releasing on HBO Max, just like Wonder Woman 1984. It is totally crazy, but now everyone's just waiting to see what Disney does with all of their movies in 2021. I would expect something similar where they release stuff in theaters, then within like a week or two, they start dropping stuff on Disney+. But post all your reactions in the comments below. Obviously, my new Mandalorian Season 2 Episode 6 video will post on Friday just like normal. Everyone click here for my full Mandalorian Season 2 Episode 5 Ahsoka Tano video, and click here for my new Thor 4 teaser and that big Guardians of the Galaxy 3 announcement. Thank you so much for watching. Everyone stay safe. I'll see you guys tonight.